So for my like history explanations that I'm putting on here, I just want to like have a disclaimer. I'm not like trying to pressure you or make anybody feel like they need to have all of this prepared and ready to go. It's just my style. It's just my preference. Like even before I was tutoring, actually probably my entire life, I've just been really, really into history. And before I was tutoring, like with just homeschooling at home, whenever there was a history question or a history sentence we were learning together, my kids were just naturally drawn to it. So I've always put extra time into researching this history things. Like, yes, we read together, and yes, we, look up things together, but I like to have a little grasp on it for myself when I'm having these conversations, because I don't remember a lot of what I learned in school. Like, I know I learned these things in school, but it was a really short little chunk, and I just don't have a full, good understanding of it just locked in my brain. I have to relearn these things. So that's why I have it all in here, is hopefully it will be helpful to you so that you can use the information that I'm giving you if you want to. Take it or leave it. No one is offended. I am not offended. I'm just putting it out there for you, for it to be helpful if it is helpful. And if it's not, then I have a timestamp where you can just click on through there and just not even watch it. So I just wanted to give you that little disclaimer. I know a lot of people are at campuses now where they have more time with their kids, where they can do these things. I have other friends at different campuses that they're just doing things a little differently. So it's just out there. This is just there. It is meant to be helpful, and that is it. I'll show you the motions that I'm doing, and then I'll give you a little explanation if you want to throw that in there if you have time. So during the Renaissance period, so do 2 R's and then just kind of have them circle around. During the Renaissance period, from 1350 to 1600, Leonardo da Vinci was a famous inventor. So I'll just do an L, and then I'll make something in my hands. Leonardo da Vinci was a famous inventor. Shakespeare, so I've got my S, was a famous playwright. So Shakespeare was a playwright. And so you can just bow, or you could do acting faces, acting. So something that shows acting. So an S for Shakespeare, and then playwright, or a bow, or they could do silly theater faces. Okay, and then Michelangelo was a famous artist. So then M, Michelangelo was a famous artist, and you can paint. And Copernicus was a famous scientist, so a C, and then pouring chemicals, a famous scientist. Or you could be looking like this. And Copernicus was the one who he discovered that the sun is the center of the universe, not the earth. Yes, that was him. Okay, so what I'll do for him is a telescope. So you could do scientist, because the word is scientist, but what he's really well known for his observation that the sun is the center of the universe. So you could have a telescope where he's looking at the sun. And I mean, that's a science. So I think that's it. All right, those are my motions for history. So a little history explanation. Listen, I don't do all of this in class. I'm not able to say all of this in class. I'm giving you my raw, I have all of this kind of in my head before I explain. So it just helps me to have all of this information, and then in the moment I can decide what I'm going to share with them, or if they ask a question, then I just have it kind of ready to go in my mind. So to talk about the Renaissance, I'll be okay, so what have we been talking about in history? We've talked about, the feudal system and the 100 Years' War and the Black Death. These were really, really tough times for the people of Europe. And they're ready. They're ready to enjoy some leisure, some time where they're not just at war constantly. And so that's kind of moving out of these tough, hard times in medieval Europe into the time known as the Rebirth. And Renaissance means rebirth. Well, the rebirth of what? The rebirth of ideas and like literature, things from ancient Rome and ancient Greece. So I'll remind them, we learned about ancient Rome and ancient Greece in cycle 1. And, you'll remember that Rome was great for a while. It was like the biggest empire, and they had the Roman roads and the Pax Romana. And during that time, they were building these beautiful pieces of architecture. The Colosseum was built. And so this was a time when people were writing a lot, and they had all these philosophies and in ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, okay? So now, just fast forward to where we're at in history. We've had the feudalism, 100 Years' War, Black Death. We're coming out of that. And now these countries like France and England and Spain and Italy have built up armies to where they can protect their lands from invaders. Now their armies are protecting them. They have time to read and to study and to think. And so they have this rebirth where, what are they reading? What are they studying? The things from ancient times, from ancient Greece, from ancient Rome. They're studying those things, those writings. So they go from being in survival mode, lots of war hardships, to this time of rebirth, rediscovery. So that's like the main point with the Renaissance. We're coming out of dark times into time where they can kind of think and read, okay? So, and it's important to say, they weren't just rediscovering and thinking about old times, things from the past. There's also new discoveries, new exploration happening. So, like new inventions, the explorer, Henry the Navigator, and Columbus. They're, they're getting outside of where they've always been. They're exploring more. Martin Luther, he's telling people, don't just believe what the church is telling you. Look at the Bible. Look for the Bible for truth. These are new ideas, new things that are happening, different. Maybe not new, but different than what was happening, okay? So the Renaissance produced amazing Italian artists. The Renaissance starts in northern Italy. So we've got artists like Michelangelo, Botticelli, Raffaello, Sanzio, and Rembrandt, Van Ryn. I mean, we have got these gorgeous, famous artists. They'll probably recognize Michelangelo, Rembrandt, maybe Raphael, I don't know, Botticelli. And then Leonardo da Vinci also was Italian, not just an artist. He was a sculptor, architect, musician, engineer, and scientist. So that's why we have him being our inventor. So then we've got our Polish astronomer, Nicholas Copernicus, who observed that the sun is actually the center of the universe. That is not what had been taught. It had been taught that the earth was the center of the universe. And then we've got the wonderful Englishman, William Shakespeare, who is considered the greatest English poet and playwright. They might know Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Julius Caesar, especially some of those older kids. They may recognize those. So, I don't know, just another thing about this is, like, for all of these great pieces of art, I mean, it was expensive. They had to have patrons to pay for this. So patrons are people who use their money and they fund and they support the arts. They pay for works of art. They pay for the libraries, for the books, for the buildings. So even today, there's patrons who use their wealth to support, modern day causes and art and all of that. So back in the Renaissance days, some of the patrons were the popes, which I think is interesting. So the church was really involved in this. And the Medici family, the Sforza family, and other wealthy merchants. So you may have heard of like the Medici family. In history, you can tell them, like, if you want to see what's really important to a society, you can look where they're spending their money. So where is a society channeling money? And there was a lot of money going into the arts. So if you want to bring up the patrons that were supporting this and how it was so important, it was so valued now that these wealthy people are willing to pour money into the artists. So that's all I have for history. For geography, I'm going to give them the blank map again. And we've got the mountains, so we're finally going to learn what all those triangles are on or the little kind of triangle things on our map. And so first I'll have them find Spain. And so we'll have them locate Spain, have them locate Barcelona, and we'll see what country is Spain connected to. So they'll say Portugal and France. And so we'll say, okay, well, the Pyrenees Mountains really are a barrier between France and Spain. So we're going to peer over the Pyrenees into France. And so then I'll have them trace these blue or circle them or just color them in blue. And while they're doing that, I'm telling them about the mountains. So I'll say, this is really separating Spain from the rest of Europe because these mountains are really difficult to travel through. It's not like there's just a road that goes straight through where it's easy to get from France to Spain. And so one thing that has this affected Spain, why it's important to realize that this is a barrier, is because what else surrounds Spain? And show them the water. Spain is surrounded by water other than this little strip of land. And so historically, the Spanish have been really excellent sailors. And we have a lot of explorers that come from Spain because if they wanted to get somewhere, they were sailing there. It was easier to sail than to get a bunch of people or goods or whatever they were, if they were transporting something through the mountains. So let's talk about that. And I'll have them say Pyrenees again. So after we've peered at the Pyrenees, we're going to walk all the way across to the eastern part of France, where we will find the crescent-shaped mountain range, which is the Alps. And as they're coloring these red, I'll tell them to be sure to stop. Once you get over this northern part of Italy, stop, don't go up. But just point out how it kind of stops over top of the Adriatic Sea, over Italy right there. And I'll just tell them this is our largest mountain range in Europe, and that it goes over in 8 countries, over 8, they're called alpine countries, and that it has a special name, the special separation that these mountains have, because we've got the Mediterranean Sea down here, and so we've got this Mediterranean part of Europe, and then above the mountains is called Central Europe. So I'll just point that out to them while they're coloring. And I'll tell them, the highest mountains in the Alps are covered in snow all year round. They may ask them, why is it possible that even in the summertime they could have snow on the tippy tops? And then there's a little black triangle in this mountain range, which is the Matterhorn, which is right where France, Italy, and Switzerland meet. And so you could have them make a mad face for the Matterhorn. But then after I point that out, I'll be like, wait, what mountain range is this? Is this the Pyrenees mountain range or the Alps? So hopefully they'll say the Alps. And I'm just going to tell them a little bit about it. It has flat sides. So it's really the most recognizable, a very, very, very recognizable mountain in the Alps because it has these flat pyramid looking sides. and that at the base of the mountain is the largest igloo in the entire world. So if they ever go to the Matterhorn, they can stay in an igloo hotel at the bottom of that mountain. So since these mountains cover such a vast area, it might be a good idea to have, like, so many of these little European countries in here, it might be a good idea just to show them this, like an actual map that's filled in, or like just have this for your own reference. So this is on page 174 in the Foundations Guide. And so it marks all of the mountains on here with the seas and countries and everything. So this would just be helpful, especially when showing them the Alps and all the countries that they span across, because it's a lot, and some of them are really, it's just really hard to see even like the country's boundary lines on here, because they have the rivers and, you know, the country's separation, like there's whatever, they're lines for the countries. So for the Carpathian Mountains, I'll just point out that it kind of curves around or hooks around, and that a large portion of the mountains are in Romania. And sometimes this is called the wildest part of Romania because they have the biggest population of brown bears and wolves and lynx, and all of Europe can be found in Romania in the Carpathian Mountains. And they also found all of these fossils of big carnivore animals, and that there's like thousands of caves where they found all of these fossils, and they're supposed to be from animals that disappeared during the last ice age. So just kind of like a fun kind of animal fact for them. And then also to point out, we've got the Black Sea here, and then this is the Danube River that flows through the Carpathian Mountains. For the Caucasus Mountains, I'm going to have them find the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and we will talk about how the mountains go right across there, connecting the Black and the Caspian Sea. You can say it looks like the Black Sea's kicking a ball and the ball's going shoo down into the Caspian Sea. Something important that I'll talk about while they are coloring this is that these mountains separate Europe and Asia. And like, especially if I had older students, I would ask them, what is a person who makes maps? What are they called? A cartographer. Well, why do you think the cartographers decided that this would be the boundary line for Asia and Europe? Why do you think they chose that? And so we can talk about mountains and like maybe bring up how, you know, with Spain and France, these mountains are really hard to cross. And so it really separated, it still does, Spain from the rest of Europe, and how this is a good separation of lands with the mountains. And just let them, you know, maybe talk about that a little bit, which would be a good transition into the Ural Mountains that divide Europe and Asia up here, how it's just like goes straight up and down from in Russia, and how Russia is a part of Europe and Asia. So I would just point out to them, like, sometimes you'll see a map of Asia and there's like all of this space over here before they get to these Central European countries, and just point out to them, like, this is Russia. So like, I've looked at some maps where it just has this, the Ural Mountains, it has this line here, but it doesn't show the rest of Russia because it's not a part of Europe. But I don't know, maybe that's too much to explain to them, but and if I had the little ones, this is what I would do. This is what I did every week last year when I had the little bitty ones. So these are the larger maps in these big pocket protectors, and I just would write the names of them that are, you know, color coded to match the locations, and always using a wet erase marker, because I tried to use dry erase and they just immediately got wiped off. And this was so easy for me to do at home, and they transferred well without them getting all messed up. So wet erase is definitely the way to go for these. And then I have them use like a little figurine. Like, I found these at Dollar Tree, just little erasers. But I also, you could have them bring in like a Lego figure from their house, or if they have like a little small toy that they could move around, you could have them do that. Sometimes I would give everybody a Skittle. Like for this one, I might give them like a blue, red, green, orange, brown M&M, or a Skittle, or whatever. I might give them one, like around Halloween time, I gave them those little candy corns, and I just gave them one candy corn and they moved it from location to location, and they got to eat it at the end. Or you could get those marshmallow like pumpkin things. Anyway, there are endless options for what you can use, but I thought the hot air balloon was cute to like float over the tops of the mountains. And then if you have a little song or something, it's easy to move through those with them. But the little ones really need a lot of help, like seeing which one to go to. So I thought the colors helped a lot last year, because I could just, like, for the most part, they all knew their colors. And then that was an easy way to get them to touch that location. After we had introduced it with the colors, it was easy for them to go back and then say, you know, these are the Ural Mountains, these are the Pyrenees, or whatever. I've just been kind of having to try out different things with English, because I feel like the English in my class has just not been great. Like, I just haven't really liked anything I've done yet. So we're going to try the writing in my class and see how it goes. But I had some motions planned. So the motions I was going to do is all about, you know, possessive pronouns. So who does something belong to? Whose is it? So for mine, you could just do like mine, yours, his, hers, it, ours. You just have them like put their arm around a buddy like it's ours. Yours, you know, again, it's just like the same motion as yours basically. And then theirs, I would say like theirs. So those would be the motions I would use if I was going to do that. But I'm going to have them write while we sing the possessive pronoun song. This is the writing sheet I'm going to give my kids for English. They've really enjoyed doing the maps and like trying to write the names of the cities. And so I just want to try this with them and see how it goes. I'll just have them write on this in paper. Obviously, I wrote this out myself, and I'll just make copies where they can write on it in pencil to write the nominative, objective, and possessive pronouns. I don't think it's going to be a huge time consumer, because the longest word I think is like 5 letters, and I'll have them all written out for them. But we're going to see how it goes. So while they fill this out, I will play our pronoun song, and I'll show some motions that go with these. Another thing that I made, so if I do this, I can just have them, I can either make copies of it, or I can give them little clear protectors, just these little sheet protectors where they can write on and wipe off markers. And they always like using markers, like it's just something fun and different. So I might do that, but this is just a basic chart they can fill in that goes with any of the weeks. So I was thinking this would be good for review time, where they could fill this in and I could say, write the nominative pronouns or write the possessive pronouns. Or like just during class, if I just want to have them, like if they're doing this and it's just too much, maybe the next week I will just use this and have them fill in whatever our pronouns are for next week. Or you could also use something like this for review, where they're, you know, reviewing the last few weeks and writing them all down. But I'm going to try this with them and we'll see how it goes. So I wanted to show you what I did for English last year, just as an example of something you could do if you wanted to have them work on their writing in class. So I just bought a pack of these little blank books from the Target Dollar Tree. I think this is from Target. This actually might be from Dollar Tree, but they're just little blank books. And so last year I made everybody a book and wrote their name on it, and then after they did their tracing, I would give a sticker, like a different sticker for every week. But all I did was I drew lines, and then I wrote this was for the prepositions last year, and I just wrote them in marker. And then while they were singing the song or listening to the song, they would try to trace the letters. And so it was really challenging for some of them who had never like done that. It's for like the 4-year-olds, and it was just good practice for them. with tracing letters. And so I just did that for every week. I labeled each page. And so if you were wanting to incorporate some tracing into English, this was just what I did last year, and they really liked it, and it was a nice calm activity for them. So for Latin, we're still in our future tense. So I'll have my little bow and arrow, and just, we're shooting our arrow into the future. And then I've made these cards, and so each one just has a different tense on it. And I made 3 sets of these. So we'll sing through it as a class. Like if you go through the song, I think we sing through them 3 times, just with playing the song once. And then I'll split them into to 3 different groups and give them each a set of cards and have them race to see who can put them in order the fastest. And then after they've done that, I'll have like each group say the Latin tenses, and then they'll probably want to do that a couple of times. So yeah, that's what I'll have them do for Latin. So math is not my favorite subject. Like I always struggled with math growing up, and so I made like these fun charts just to try to make it skip counting more fun for my kids. And I have these in their rooms and stuff. So anyway, I made this ice cream chart with the 12s. And so what I'm gonna do with it is this little game that they got for like Christmas. I don't even know where it's from. It's like a super cheap little ice cream stacker game. So I'll have my kids, I'll like play the 12s, and then everybody will get a chance, and they're just gonna sing the 12s and stack these ice cream cones up as high as they can. So there's not like 12 ice cream cones or anything. It's just kind of like they build a tower and then it falls down. So everybody will get a chance to try to build a tower, and we'll just sing the 12s while they do this in class. For 11s, I made this little poster, and I will just do the circling thing where I'm gonna circle a number, and they all get up and jump while we do it. So whenever I do like an activity for one, I try to keep the other one as like basic as I can, just to save on time. So for science, we have how do animals react to environmental change. So for adapt, I'll just explain to them what it is. Animals change over time in order to survive in their environment. So one way that animals survive is camouflage. So can you think of any animals that adapt to their environment through camouflage? They might think of chameleon. And then like if they don't think of anything else, I'll talk about the snowshoe. Is it a snowshoe? Yes, the snowshoe hare, who is brown all year long, and then when it starts to snow, their fur turns white. And why does it turn white? To help them survive in their environment. What are they camouflaging from? Just have a little talk with them about why animals do that and why adapting is important for them. And then for migration, it's the movement of animals over the same route in the same season each year. So sometimes animals migrate because they need to find food, or they do this so that they can breed. So what animals migrate? Birds. And so you could let them act like birds flying around. And then for hibernate, they probably know what this is. You could have them yawn and act like they're sleepy. Where animals eat heavily in the autumn months, they store up food and fat, and then they go into a deep, deep sleep during those winter months, and their body processes slow down and use that stored food and fat while they're in their deep sleep. What animals hibernate? Bears. A lot of reptiles will hibernate. So what I'm going to do with this is, after we've gone through all of them, I made cards where I just wrote each of these on there. So I'll have them in a line on the floor. And then I found this print. This is from CC Connected. So it has 3 examples of each animal. Sorry, the glare is so bad. But it has animals on there. And so I'm going to cut these out, and then I'll show them the animal, and I'll say, which one does this? Does this animal hibernate? Does it hibernate, migrate, or adapt? And so then we'll categorize the animals based on how they react to their environmental change. And if you don't have CC Connected, or if you can't find this page, you can just look on Google and find animals that migrate and hibernate, print them out. Or if you have like a book, you could just go through a book that has animals in it and ask them, you know, what does the bear do? And have them tell you what it does. So they're going to say these three a lot of times while you go through this. And you could even do it like they choose the bear hibernates. And then we'll say, how do animals react to environmental change? Adapt, migrate, hibernate. Okay, let's look at the snake. What does the snake do? What do we think? Does it adapt? Does it, you know, ask them each one, and then after they categorize it, you can all say the science question and answer together to get it all in. And, you know, this is great. I did a lot of stuff like this with my little ones. They loved it. I really didn't do a lot of science songs with my little ones because I really like to use it as a time where we were like we were sorting things or putting things in categories, and I just kept asking them the question just over and over again any chance I got to get them to repeat the question and answer. But especially with one like this where it's so short, it's fun to bring, you know, pictures of animals in for them to sort. They loved stuff like that last year. So that's my recommendation if you have little ones. But I mean, I'm going to do it with my class too because they'll like it. They'll love it. To make it even more simple, to not bring in pictures or anything like that, you could give every kid a blank sheet of paper and tell them to draw an animal, and we're going to decide how it reacts to environmental change. So you could give them like a list of animals to choose from, and then they pick an animal and they start to draw it, and then just as they're drawing, just go around to every child and be like, what are you drawing? Oh, I'm drawing a butterfly. Okay, everybody, what does a butterfly do? And they probably don't know, so you're gonna have to tell them. We'll say a butterfly migrates, and then as everyone is still coloring, everybody's still coloring, they haven't stopped coloring, you know, you're asking, how do animals react to environmental change? Adapt, migrate, hibernate. And then go to the next child. What are you drawing? I'm drawing a snake. You know, and you're going to get all of your repetitions in, and they're making a connection with the science for that. So I love doing stuff like that. It's just my style. But there's some ideas. So cut these out. You can sort them, have them draw an animal, ask them what they're drawing, and then tell everybody how it reacts to environmental change. I would probably have a list of animals so that you could make sure you knew like what it. And here's the thing, whenever you're letting them draw or do something like that, or even with their writing, like when I was talking about English and where I had my little ones tracing the words, they didn't finish. Like not everybody finished, and that was okay. They just did what they could in the time that I allowed, and like I just prepped them to be okay with that. So some kids will freak out like, I didn't finish, I want to finish my picture, I want to finish my tracing. And you just prep them to be like, listen, you may not finish this right now. That is okay. We can work on it more during review time. You can let them trace while you ask review questions, or you can let them finish their drawing while you ask review questions at the end. But I don't just let them like sit there and color till their heart desires. Like we don't have that flexibility all the time, or like the time to do that. So I just tell them, you're probably not going to finish. It's okay. And just prep them for that. And then when you're like, all right, put everything away, you're going to have to finish your picture later, they are less likely to freak out and be like upset about it. So yeah, I don't like just let them spend endless amounts of time on these things. I have a set time in my mind for what, you know, how long we can really spend on it. And I haven't had any issues with kids. You know, they might be like, I didn't finish, and I'll just give them another option. You know, you can finish at the end with review, or you can take it home and finish it and tell your mommy and daddy about it. For timeline, I'm gonna have all my cards and I'm gonna lay them on the ground like in a big semicircle. So I'll have like cards like just like next to each other on the ground like this in a semicircle. And I'll have the kids come stand in front of a card. So some of them will pair up, and like I have like 10 kids, so some of them will have to pair up on cards, but they don't ever mind doing that. So when I get to their card, I'm going to show them the motion, and I'm going to be like, it is your job, after I teach you the motion, you're going to teach this motion to the class. So for like Indians, Mauryan Empire, so if I get to that person, I'm going to show them, okay, you're going to touch your forehead, and then you're going to move your hands back and forth like a road, because they were really known for their roads. And so I'll be like, okay, now you're going to show the class. So Indians, Mauryan Empire, everybody look at so-and-so, and then they'll like do the motion, and I'll do it with them, you know. And then I'll go to the next person. I'll say, okay, now we have Mayans of Mesoamerica. So we're going to make steps like the famous pyramids that have the steps on them in the Mayan Empire in Mesoamerica. And so then I'll be like, okay, let's go back to the first person. Okay, show us Indians, Mauryan Empire, Mayans of Mesoamerica. And so I just kind of have them act like it's their job to show the class how to do your motion. But then I go back to the beginning every time. So then when we get to the third person, I'll show them Punic Wars. So I do a P and then war. And so then they'll show the class, and then I'll go back to the beginning. So we'll start all over and go through all of them. So after Punic Wars, it's Rome conquers Greece. So we'll do an R, conquers Greece. So it's that same like G and then the nose shield sign. Roman dictator Julius Caesar. So we're just going to salute like a good soldier, and then a J. Roman dictator Julius Caesar. And then Caesar Augustus and the Pax Romana. So we'll do the sign for king is like a K, but we're going to do a C for Caesar. So we'll do Caesar Augustus and the Pax Romana. So you just kind of act like you're calm water. So the Pax Romana was, you can explain this because it'll go along with history really well. Pax Romana, it means it was a time period of peace in the Roman Empire. So you know how everybody was trying to attack Rome, and so this was a time of peace. And during that time, like the Colosseum was built, and Hadrian's Wall, the Temple of Peace. So this was a time when they were able to get some stuff done where Rome was peaceful and they were not at war with people. So it's an important little nugget to connect with their history sentence for this week. Then for John the Baptist, just do a J, and then we have 2 A's, and you're gonna like have them like this, and just kind of like you're baptizing someone, like you're like dunking them. So all right, so that's it for timeline motions, and that's the activity that I'll do with it.